Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining us for day 2 of our Flip Summit. My name is Christina Kissen, and I am the Flip Summit manager, and I really hope you've been enjoying this year's summit. I want to welcome you to this Fireside session. It is called Navigating Leadership in Today's Democracy. And as we gather here today, we hope to delve into a very important discussion about the state of our democracy, our current political landscape, as well as youth engagement in elections. So in this moderated conversation, we have the privilege of hearing from two distinguished speakers, Peggy Nash and Chi Nguyen of Equal Voice. Peggy is the author of Women Winning Office, an activist guide to getting elected, and she brings a wealth of experience from her tenure as a member of parliament and a federal NDP leadership candidate. Chi Nguyen, the executive director of Equal Voice, champions the cause of electing women to all levels of government and has a very rich background in community building and social psychology. In our conversation today, we hope to shed light on the different challenges that are facing the health of our democracy today, particularly in the context of partisan issues, politics, toxicity, and the influence of social media. We're going to explore how these challenges intersect with our collective efforts to achieve sustained and just environmental progress. We're also going to hear some personal insights from our speakers and their experiences in the political arena, chasing leadership, and the importance of youth engagement despite the barriers they may have faced. So without further ado, I'm going to welcome our esteemed speakers, Peggy Nash and Chi Nguyen, to share their invaluable perspectives on navigating leadership in today's democracy. One thing I want to note is that Chi is facing some technical issues, so we will go through with this and as normal and see how we can pivot as the session goes on. With that, Peggy, I will pass it off to you, and I'm really looking forward to this discussion. Thank you, everybody, for joining us.
Thank you, Christina, and hello, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here with you today. And Chi, I just want to make sure that you can hear me. If so, good morning to you. And maybe not. Christina, is it a conversation between you and I? I see Chi.
Hi, Chi. Okay, so yes, we have gotten started, and Chi, we just want to confirm. Could you just say hello, and let's see if your audio is working all right today? Okay, Peggy, I'm going to start the first question off with you. So one thing I absolutely want to ask you that I'm sure a lot of people are dying to know is, what is it like to be a leader? You were a member of parliament, and you would also run for the NDP leadership race. And I'm wondering if you can talk a little bit about what that experience was like and what some of the challenges were there.
Yes, putting yourself out front and center it's a transition. For most people, it certainly wasn't something that I expected to do with my life. And it is that transition from being a private person to being a public person that takes some getting used to. And it's seeing photos of yourself, videos of yourself, people recognizing you. It's being out there in public. People will express their opinions. And so it's very, very positive. I would say most of what I experienced was positive. But certainly, there's negativity. And I had people, I've been threatened. I had people, refuse to speak with me and slam doors in my face. I think I developed a bit of a thick skin on that and just assumed people were having a bad day. But I do want to acknowledge that I think the level of polarization and the level of partisanship and toxicity has been increasing. And it's not just a question of having a thick skin. I think that there are truly challenges to our democracy in the current system, the current functioning of public debate today that has an impact on people who put themselves out for leadership in any capacity.
No, that's fantastic. And then I also want to highlight a little bit about the rise of toxic partisan politics in Canada today, and especially down south. We also see there has been a rise in polarization and really high levels of partisanship that can sometimes interfere with our democracy. So, one thing I want to ask you is how does this impact your work? To engage and support people, different gender diverse people running for office, but also about engaging youth in politics. How are you shifting tactics and strategies in response to some of these challenges?
So I do want to emphasize that much of this kind of being in public is so positive. I mean, I remember one time being in the lobby of a bank using a bank machine, and someone started talking to me about childcare. And pretty soon there were 5 or 6 people, and we had a whole discussion about childcare, and it was pretty amazing. I loved the fact that you could spark that kind of discussion. And I still get some of that, even though I've been out of politics for a few years. But the confrontational nature now, and it's, politics can be confrontational. It is a competition and a confrontation of ideas and parties. Elections can be very confrontational, but it is the personalized nature of it and the inability to engage in debate that some people have that I think is more challenging, is in fact dangerous for our democracy. I spend a lot of my time trying to encourage young people and gender diverse people, racialized people to engage in the political system because I think that it strengthens our democracy to have a full spectrum of voices and representative voices in our debate. And what a lot of this confrontation says, in my view, it says to people who aren't kind of the traditional candidates that they shouldn't be there, that they are not welcome, that they should be quiet. And so I think the solution is not to withdraw. The solution is to redouble our efforts and to have a more representative parliament or city council, that our public debate be better represented, and that those who have traditionally been underrepresented refuse to step back, that they come back even stronger. And there are tactics that we can use to do that.
And I just want to pass it off to Chi and see if you have anything to add. So the question was about how do we support more women, more young people, and marginalized communities in running for office? What are some strategies that we can use to adhere to some of these challenges that we're seeing in the toxicity of democracy and the partisanship as well?
And
Oh, so you are on mute. If you don't mind just unmuting.
some days tech is not our friend. I apologize, everyone. And Peggy, it's great to see you. And Christina, thanks for having me here today. We at Equal Voice are very focused on the question of how we make the system easier for everybody, but of course with a very clear focus on the gender aspect of this. It is a huge challenge, as Peggy started to name, the current climate and the context. But I think one of the things that's really missing is the positive stories of impact and what it means to have that diversity around the table in terms of different thinking, different approaches, responses to what's needed from a policy perspective. And so our job as citizens is to lift up those voices that we don't get to hear from as often. And when they make it into the political arena, that they have the support. I think anyone who's leading is challenged by a system that's not easy, but particularly those who have faced systemic barriers, we can do a lot to make sure that they are supported through their path and their leadership because they are doing a service for us.
Thank you so much for the work that you're doing with Equal Voice. I'm personally a huge fan of the organization, and I think the work that you're doing in uplifting and empowering people to run for office is fantastic. I have another question for both of you, and it deals a little bit with social media attention. And so I want to ask you both: how do the performative politics on social media and all these different antics online impact the ability of legislators to get things done? and make strong policies that are more likely to withstand election cycles. So I'll pass it off to Peggy to take this question as a former legislator, and a great one at that. So please, Peggy, let us.
Thanks, Christina. I recognize that social media it's made everything easier in terms of communicating with the community, with getting issues out. I think there's been some really, in terms of democratizing communications, I think social media has been phenomenal. It has allowed people to engage directly with people in leadership, and for those in leadership to connect with constituencies and broaden the access to the changes that they're trying to make. The flip side of that, of course, as we all have seen, is the toxicity in social media, where bots and sometimes real people are saying the most horrific, awful, toxic things. And I always said when I was elected that I did not want to ingest or inhale all of that toxicity. I just refused to do it. I would put things out on social media, but I would ask my team to help manage social media, what was incoming, so that I did not have to deal with toxicity. I totally wanted to engage with oppositional comments. If someone disagreed with me on something, it was great to hear what they had to say, to be able to engage with them. But when things veered into I want to see you dead, or you better watch your family's safety, or whatever. Clearly, there are things that can slide into genuine threats that need to be where we need to contact the authorities, obviously. But I just, as someone in politics, your job is to inspire people, to uplift people, to be positive, to get things done. You cannot kind of swim in that cesspool of negativity. So that's just how I felt about it.
No, absolutely. And I'm really sorry you had to go through all of that. I'm sure everybody in the public eye, like, it's such a bittersweet role to have, where you can make such a great positive impact, but you also have to deal with all this negativity as well. And I think, just for the sake of time, I think I'm actually going to pass on a different question to Chi, and this relates directly to your work with Equal Voice as well. I'm wondering if you can tell us a bit about the relationship between increased representation in politics and the overall health of our democracy. Why is representation important, and how could it contribute to a better democracy in Canada?
Yeah, it's a great question, Christina. I think a huge part of it is leaving important perspectives out of the decision making that needs to happen to govern our country. I don't know if many folks know this, but Canada's actually in 64th place globally for our gender equality rankings in terms of our national parliament. So we're sitting at about 30%. We've been stuck at this number since 2015, and 30% is good. But it is not representative of the gender diversity that exists in our population. And so we at Equal Voice are tracking these numbers. We take a look at what the challenges are, and we think about how to ensure that women and gender diverse people are equipped to lead and to make changes in our political system. We do it from a multi-partisan perspective, which means we invite all the parties to step up and ensure that women and gender diverse people have a place in their political, whatever political party aligns with them. But it is absolutely critical that all Canadians feel at home in politics, because it's our system that gives us what we need to make sure that we have the kind of contract between us and the government that makes sense and serves us best. And by not having more women and gender diverse people that are reflected in our legislatures, we lose out on some of the important lessons and insights. I was listening on the radio this morning about, the lack of women anesthesiologists and the better outcomes that came from seeing, where hospitals had over 30%, better fatality numbers, etc. It makes a difference who's around those tables. Different lived experiences shape the outcomes, and that's why it's so critical to have that as part of the mix.
No, thank you so much for your answer. And I think just because I think it's relevant, just to quote what one of our panelists said yesterday, I'm going to paraphrase, but if everyone at the table agrees on a topic, then not everyone is at that table. So it goes to your point about making sure that we do have those diverse perspectives with us at the table, and how that can improve the state of our democracy. Next question, I'm going to pass over to Peggy. And I'm wondering if you could talk a little about how we can support climate action. So how can pushing back against these threats to our democracy and how, like, returning decorum in our legislatures, how can this be an important way to support climate action?
Well, wouldn't it be wonderful if we actually debated facts rather than beliefs? It would be great to deal in the real world. I think part of this is a generational divide where young people disproportionately are concerned about climate action, and so that encourages me to want to engage young people to consider running for elected office, because I think we do need their voices around the table. It's a great quote you used, Christina, by the way. But I think, if we don't engage in politics, then those, for example, who are climate deniers or who are resisting the science and the evidence in our daily lives, then we're letting them run things and make decisions that can lead to mortality challenges. So I think the future of the planet depends on getting involved and insisting that those who care about climate action, who want to do something about the climate emergency we're facing, including now in the West, in Western Canada, in terms of the fires, that those voices are around the table and are not only heard, but are there making decisions.
No, that's a terrific answer. And for our final question before we move on to Q&A, I'm going to pass it over to Chi. So just to finish us off, as a racialized woman who has run for office, do you know firsthand the different barriers and challenges as part of this experience in a very personal way? And I'm wondering if you have a message for our audience and a general message to youth participants here today about how, despite these challenges, despite these realities, they should still engage in politics and consider running for leadership positions like yourself.
Thanks, Christina. I think it's really critical that people who feel the call for service and leadership step up in the ways that align best with their values. Not everyone's going to put their name on that ballot, and that's okay. There's so much work to be done, and what we need is more people active in all parts of democracy. So if you're thinking about running, join us at one of our campaign schools and learn a little bit about what it can take, what's required. If you are thinking about getting involved in a campaign, there's avenues and ways to shape that as well. Know that everything you're pushing back on and everything you're bringing into the conversation adds really important values and insights. And it's hard and exhausting to feel like you have to hold many of these pieces, but it's really critically important because we need those diverse perspectives and diverse ways of understanding the world in coming up with really thoughtful and substantive solutions to the big questions of the day.
Mm-hmm. No, amazing. And just to reiterate part of what you said, Equal Voice does run campaign school. So if you are a woman or gender diverse person looking to run for office, definitely follow up with Equal Voice and see what's happening in your area next. And with that, I think we will finish up this moment. So our first question from Mike is, how do you distinguish good faith and bad faith criticism? So Peggy, you talked a bit about some of the criticism you received while you're in office. I think this is a perfect question for you to take. And let's just try to keep our answers shorter so that we can get through more questions before we need to end the session.
Good faith criticism debates issues. Bad faith criticism debates people and their qualities, which may be unchangeable. So racism, sexism, homophobia, Islamophobia, anti-Semitism, all deal breakers. I'm not engaging with that.
No. That's a the great way to distinguish it. So really well said. And then we have another question, and this one is from Krupa. And they say, due to some of the negativity and partisanship in society, what helped you be brave and continue your public leadership regardless? And I think I'll pass this off to Chi.
That's a beautiful question. I think a really important piece of that is knowing like what's calling you to serve, and really understanding that why, regardless of gender, it's what helps keep you grounded. So when people are being awful to you, or people are coming at you in ways that aren't helpful or productive in moving things forward, remembering why you decided to do this in the first place is absolutely critical. And having a cheerleading squad around you to make sure that you feel supported.
And then, Peggy, do you have anything else to add to this question as well? Because of the negativity and the partisanship, what helps you to be brave and to continue your constant leadership?
You know, I think I totally agree with Chi's answer, but I would also add politics is about creating a team. You know, you see one person who's out there running, who may, you know, their face may be on a flyer or they're seen as the leader, but no leader runs alone. They're not a leader if there's nobody behind them. So you know, having a strong team, a team that you know you can count on, who can help you, who can ease the load, who can be a sounding board, a reality check. To me, that's essential in withstanding the good things and the bad things in politics.
Well, I just want to thank both of you so much for coming here today. Despite the tech issues, the conversation was fantastic. And thank you so much for your constant leadership, your advocacy work. And we wish this conversation could have gone longer. Now we will be taking a 10-minute break. And when we return, it will be for a workshop, the Election Cycle Bootcamp, that is run by the Institute for Change Leaders. It'll run for about 3 hours, but I promise you it is very interactive and it will include breaks. So you can stretch your legs and grab some food as well. Once again, just thank you everybody to joining us, and thank you so much to Peggy and Chi.
Thank you.